Okay, welcome back to another speaking tip this week. I'm continuing my tips on humor and different mechanisms and ways to put humor into your speeches. And today's tip is on using an analogy. Now, an analogy is where we basically compare the similarities between two different objects. That's the simplicity of it. And it's a very good way to make a very odd comparison that creates a surprise in the mind of the audience. They would never look at comparing those two things, and getting some humor, because as I said, humor really deals with something surprising. And the nice thing with analogies, they can also give you a very clear picture of what you're trying to describe. So with that, what I have here, I was riding a motorcycle, put some notes on. I was riding a motorcycle one time, and a friend of mine had this really big motorcycle, and he goes, "You want to ride my bike?" I said, "Yeah." So we were riding up in the mountains. So he got on my bike and I drove his up there, and he goes, "What do you think?" And afterwards I was going, that was like driving a Volkswagen with two wheels. And that gives you an idea what it's like. It was a big motorcycle. It wasn't like it was more like a car. It was like driving a Volkswagen with two wheels. Okay, not necessarily super funny, but made the point. Okay, I have a couple of videos I want to show you, but I looked up bad analogies. And I hope you see the humor in it like I do. But I had a friend of mine in my Toastmasters group one time that did a speech about bad high school English class writing, students writing analogies. So let me see what we have here. He says, her face was like a perfect oval, like a circle that had its two sides compressed by a thigh master. Bad analogy, though pretty funny. Let's see what we have here. Oh yeah, she had a deep, throaty, genuine laugh, like the sound a dog makes just before it's going to throw up. Okay. The ballerina rose gracefully in point and extended one slender, long leg behind her, like a dog at a fire hydrant. Okay, you have this beautiful picture of this ballerina and then this relatively disgusting picture of the dog at the fire hydrant. He was a lame duck, not a metaphorical lame duck, but like a real duck that was actually lame. Her vocabulary was bad as, like, whatever. And the last one I have here is, she grew on him like a colony of E. coli, and he was a room temperature Canadian beef. Bad analogies, okay? All right, let's take a second and look at some of the videos that I pulled up for you, and see what some of the speakers are doing here. Let's see what I have here. First one was Jerry Seinfeld. Let's see if I can get Jerry to expand here. There we go. Now Jerry's doing a theme on cookies, and he's talking about how evil cookies are, and that in the evening they have these really nice names on them, but then in the evening they attack you. So listen to the analogy that he does here.
I have no chance. It's a war. It's a war between us and the cookies. Look at that box. It's like a military bunker inside there. It's like that preformed plastic barracks that the cookies live in. You slide it out. It's like a D-Day beach landing troop carrier. All the cookies, they're lined up waiting to go into combat. That's the way it is.
Okay, so there we could see the cookie analogy. Okay, this is another one I thought was clever. And this is just throws it in. This is a comedian, John Mulaney. And what he's doing is he's talking about he's 35 and his body is starting to do strange things. So
I'm going to get big and strong. This is it. This is it. It's just going to be this. I'm like an iPhone. It's going to be worse versions of this every year. Plus, I get super hot in the middle of the afternoon for no reason.
Okay, I'm like an iPhone. It's going to be worse versions of this as I get worse every year. Okay, here's David Nottage with, I thought was a very good analogy in his world champion speech called Get Up, and he's talking about what it was like when he was a little boy.
Guests. As a 6-year-old boy, I stood about 3 foot 5 inches tall and weighed, approximately 100 pounds. And when I was sat on that push bike, I didn't so much resemble the majestic bald eagle in full flight as I did a rather plump turkey about 1 week before Thanksgiving.
Okay, rather plump turkey about 1 week before Thanksgiving. Just a way to slip an analogy in there. We've all probably been in a situation where we're writing a speech, trying to describe something. And what David did, he wanted to put some humor in. And of course, he had his 100 pounds and there was some other humor in there, but we're looking at the analogy right now. And the last one I have here, I've got to get my screen share to work here. There we go. This is Robert McKenzie in the finals of the World Championship, and he's giving an analogy here. Let's look at it. Let me expand it.
By the time I was 30, I had said no more often than Toyota said recall.
Just a quick look at that. He could have said, by the time I was 30, I'd said no, I'd missed all these opportunities. But what he did, he compared it to something else that was a surprise to the audience. And be honest, I don't know how many recalls Toyota's had. I thought they were a pretty good vehicle. If he would have said Ford or Chrysler, I think he probably would have been more accurate on that one. But it got a good laugh. That's what's really important. Nobody was expecting Toyota recall to be compared to how many times he'd said no in his life. So the simplicity is the use of an analogy is a very effective way to put some good humor in a speech. And you can look at any time you're trying to make a point and come up with an analogy that helps make that point, and it can put some humor in, which gets the interaction going with the audience. Okay, that's the tip for this week. Use analogies to put humor in your speech. I'll see you next week.